Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is quite a simple game, but at the same time it offers a unique experience. Because it was designed with the help of neuroscientists, psychologists, and people who faced auditory hallucinations themselves. So the game would allow the player to experience the game world through the eyes of someone who is suffering from psychosis. In this video, without spoilers, I will tell you about the plot, gameplay, combat, and why despite having quite simple gameplay, Hellblade will stand out among other games you've played. The visuals and story of the game is inspired by Nordic mythology and Celtic culture. The game's protagonist, Senua, is a warrior who lives sometime in the Middle Ages who is suffering from a mental disorder. For the whole duration of the game you will be hearing voices.
I'll be right here, nice and close so I can speak without alerting the others.
These voices can laugh, conflict with each other, tell something or ask questions. So playing with headphones is a must. But the voices are not only for story purposes. They also lead the player in the right direction and give tips on how to unlock the way forward. In other games you might see blinking UI elements or written text that tells you what to do, which constantly reminds that this is just a video game. But in Hellblade, developers found a very natural way to guide the player through the game without breaking the immersion, since getting help from voices fits the storyline perfectly.
She needs to challenge the god.
She has to fight two gods first.
Two gods?
Two gates.
The plot is not always easy to understand because everything is displayed through the eyes of Senua, who because of her condition interprets things differently. Visual and auditory hallucinations means that regular things can be represented as acts of God and use of magic. So after playing the game, watching a storyline explanation video or at least reading the plot summary in Wikipedia was an eye-opening experience because it helped to unite a lot of story fragments into one coherent picture and get a better understanding of what was happening in the game and how these things were twisted by Senua's mind. The game can be even more immersive if you have a virtual reality headset. The shaky footage you see in this video is from VR, but there is only basic VR support. I still had to use the mouse and keyboard to control the character. Also, there is no first-person view, which is weird when playing in VR. But it's not necessarily a bad thing for this game, because when watching from behind the main character, the player feels like another voice in the protagonist's head, which is consistent with the plot of the game. Though there is one unpleasant nuance when it comes to VR. Occasionally, the cutscenes will play, which are going to be almost unnoticeable for a flat-screen version of the game, but if playing with virtual reality headset, the video feed will be reduced to a simple two-dimensional quality, and after watching that cutscene, return back to normal VR with perceivable depth. Such jumps between the qualities were annoying to say the least, since they were kicking me out of the immersive world each time. It wasn't a big issue, there are a lot of well-designed scenes that are properly displayed in VR. For example, this sword was right next to my face, but occasionally for a short amount of time the game is switching to regular video, which hurts the consistency of immersion in virtual reality. The game world is a set of locations that have to be visited and completed in order to unlock the next one. In each location there will be puzzles that must be solved, enemies that must be defeated, or items that have to be found, which unlocks the way forward. While it might sound generic, and in many cases it is, each location introduces a unique challenge and has a different set of rules. There are also few memorable locations which are not that typical for video games. So on average, I was satisfied with the puzzle-solving challenges. Combat looks and feels pleasant, but at the same time is very basic and repetitive. It's the same concept that can be found in the majority of games. Light attacks are fast and deal less damage, heavy attacks are slow and do more damage. If the enemy blocks, use a kick to break the block. Probably one of the most generic combat mechanics that could be found. Despite all bosses being unique and the fights with them are memorable, there are only few types of regular enemies. So after playing for a while, I reduced the combat difficulty of the game, as beating the same NPCs again and again felt too time consuming and distracting from game's plot. The character does not become stronger throughout the game. There are no levels, new skills, or better gear. There is no variety in weapons that the protagonist could use. You always fight with a sword. But for a short game such as Hellblade, it was acceptable. It took me around 7 hours to complete it, and despite the gameplay being quite basic, it was a very memorable adventure because of how Psychosis is shown. Storyline, or to be more precise, experiencing the psychotic inner world of the protagonist, was the most curious and satisfying part of the game, which makes it stand out among others. Storyline, 9 out of 10. Gameplay felt very basic or even generic. Most of the time I was running around solving puzzles, and occasionally I was interrupted by enemies. Only the boss fights were memorable, mostly because of scenery and music. Gameplay, 4 out of 10. Replayability is bad. There is absolutely no reason to replay the game unless you want to re-experience the same things that you already experienced. For most people, it will probably be a game for one playthrough. Replayability, 1 out of 10. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and this is what Voices want you to do with the subscribe button.
Push it. Push it. Push it down. What do you think will happen? Come on. Come on. Push it. She did it. She did it. She did it.